Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you enjoy these videos, please click the like button, and if you click the bell, you'll be notified of future videos, and I hope that you subscribe and belong to the channel. I want to thank you for stopping by. Today is a beautiful day, and for those of you who don't know, in about 2010, I had a large crystal skull who at the time, his name was Nanu, and he was communicating with me telepathically, and I thought I was literally going crazy because I was not telepathic in any other way. So he came into my life, and literally miracles and things started happening, and lo and behold, more crystal skulls came to me. He did tell me that he would not stay with me long, and he didn't. And the person who has him knew that he was going to belong to her ultimately. So that was interesting also. And so I was told that many crystal skulls would pass through me and very few to me. So Czar is one of those to me skulls. And I've had him since pretty much the beginning in 2010. He came shortly after I got my first skull. And he is Russian quartz. He was carved by a carver named Raven. For any of you who are listening to this who are familiar with crystal skulls and know Raven the carver, may he rest in peace, for he has crossed over. So what happened with Czar is he is an easy communicator. Not all of my skulls that I get are easy to communicate with. So if you try communicating with your crystal skull, it is very possible that one, either you need more practice, or two, the crystal skull really didn't come here for the purpose of, conversation, the way that, human beings like to have conversations. So I always prepare questions when I sit down to have a session with Czar. I kind of make a little altar and I'll spin him around so you can see how beautiful he is. He's very, very clear. He has a lot of power going through him. And he's very, very talkative. So, and he likes to look the camera in the eye. I don't know why. He just likes to really look at the camera. So this is, by the way, I think might be his first YouTube interview. So I really wasn't planning on having crystal skulls in the YouTube, but my last live show, it came up. And so I thought, why not? If it's not for you, it's not for you. Pass on by. Okay, my first question for Czar, Z-A-R, this is what the label, he calls it labels. Humans need labels, skulls really don't. Some of them like to, though. Some of them have really crazy, funny personalities, and they like to have names. So, my first question to him, now I don't use tarot cards to communicate with him because he communicates telepathically. So sometimes I have to pause in order to fully receive his information that he's telling me so that I can repeat it then to you. Did human beings always have what we label a soul? This is me asking the question. This is Czar answering. Early hominids were a group of beings on the planet, ancient humans, pre-humans, he's going to call them pre-humans, and they had a collective consciousness, so there was no purpose for them to have, so to speak, an individual soul. There are collective consciousness that choose to join in a group type setting. However, they can always separate at any point when they choose to do that. So how you human beings label soul is a little bit different of a concept than how the soul actually behaves when it is, or is defined when it is on higher realms. So souls, depending on which realm you are on, are fluid. They can change. So Czar's like, I don't want you to attach to a definition that I'm giving you of a soul, that it's going to be the same definition no matter where you are, what realm you're in, and etc. So the early hominids, getting back to that, had a collective consciousness, and an individual soul, he's putting in quotes, wasn't necessary. In nature, things are created in nature according to if there's a necessity for it. If it's not necessary, it isn't done. Creation doesn't waste. Creation never wastes. And so the concept of the soul came after the hominids, and when the brain developed a more functioning and verbal capacity, then the soul was necessary and was created by creation and has a very unique purpose to each individual. Okay, I don't think I have a follow-up question, but I want to say to any of you, if you have follow-up questions or you think of questions I haven't thought of to ask Czar, put in the comments, Czar, I have a question, and I'll do a follow-up with him on your questions. So my next question is, do crystal skulls have families? I've never even ever asked this. I have been working with crystal skulls since 2010, and I've never asked. So Czar is pondering this, and he's kind of laughing at me. And he indicates that skulls in the rock form, the physical rock that's carved like a skull, isn't required. It's not necessary to have, so to speak, a family, because each of these rocks that's carved goes off into different directions, and there would be no point in having a family. That being said, there's a crystal skull grid, and there are crystal skulls that the beings who work through the crystal skulls will form strong bonds that you could term family, if you so desired. However, the structure of having parents and children does not exist in the crystal skull world. Even if another crystal forms within a crystal, the crystal community does not necessarily consider that like a parent-child relationship, and therefore a family is something that's more important to the human and animal kingdoms than it is to the crystal skull community. Can crystals, this is my question, next question. Can crystal skulls clear out negative spirits and ghosts? Crystal skulls were designed for a variety of purposes. In the ancient times, they were used to put in the graves to assist those on their journeys to the other realms. The shamans used them for travel. There are many capabilities of clearing negative entities and ghosts, if you want to define them in that way on your culture, with crystal skulls. It is easy to do, and there are so many different rituals around using crystal skulls for clearing them that would be its own show. But basically, it's however your intention is. That crystal skulls are recorders. They record your intentions or thoughts or activities, and then they play them back magnified. This is what the quartz crystal quality does. The other stones that don't have the quartz property in there are still connected to the crystal skull grid. They have the purpose of the stone. They have the purpose of the crystal skull grid. However, they don't always have, unless they have quartz in their vein of the stone, that programmable effect. So the quartz are the information keepers and recorders. So you can record into the skull the intention to clear out negative ghosts and entities, and this shall be done. The only way that an entity would maybe not be cleared out from space or someone is if it is serving a soul purpose. If there was a soul contract agreement that that person was to have certain experiences with certain entities, the crystal skulls will never interfere in somebody's soul path. My next question. Do all carvings of crystal skulls have beings that work through them or that are attached to them? I have to tell you something funny. I used to hold up my skull and like talk into it. And then the being is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm talking to you. And he goes, why do you think that just because there's a being working through the skull that it's in the skull? I'm like, I don't know. I just thought it would like go in there. I just thought that was like the container and it went inside the container. And then it laughed. It was just this wonderful laugh. It's like, you humans, you got to think outside the skull, think outside the box. So the beings don't really have to like be inside the skull. So I found that to be funny. So that's why I changed my question to be like, work through them, or however I want to say that. And Czar's answer is not all skulls of any kind, quartz or other stones, have beings that work through them. One could request a being to come and work through a stone if you wanted a being to work through the stone. If you had a crystal skull with no being attached, you are still able to work with that crystal skull. You just have the crystal skull to work with, and you don't have the addition of having a being that works through the crystal skull. Okay, my next question. Do aliens work with crystal skulls? In other words, are there crystal skulls on other planets, and do aliens work with them? And I wanted Czar's take because I asked this question to someone else, and it was very interesting. So Czar's answer is that extraterrestrials have crystals and some crystal skull use. However, many of the extraterrestrials who are not in physical form have no reason to have a skull in a physical form when they are non-physical beings. Even the ones who can transform and appear to have a physical form would still have no reason to work with the physical form. That being said, they can still work in the crystal skull grid, which is a matrix, and they could work with the energetic properties of a crystal skull. In that sense, the energy, they wouldn't need the actual carving. So to answer your question, yes, they can work with the energies. There may be a few races who actually are still in physical form who will work with the physical crystals or whatever minerals are on the planets of where they live. However, you have to remember they will look different than humans, and these skulls will look different than what we look like on your planet. Okay, that was interesting. Thank you. My last question is, what is the purpose of crystal skulls? And Czar says, crystal skulls came to the planet in order to help humankind and also the beings who are non-human beings on your planet to sustain the energies that are beneficial for all of life on the planets. The crystal skull's recording abilities helps the ancient societies record their information, which was retained later. Your culture will most likely learn to abstract or he's using a word that I'm not familiar with, so I don't know. Sometimes he throws these scientific words at me. I'm like, okay, I don't know what you're saying. Talking little words, not big words. Extract the information out at a later date. So in other words, they record in, and then the humans would figure out how to hit play, and it would come back, and we would regain the information. We are not at even the cusp of doing that yet. However, that will come as we evolve. Crystal skulls have evolved in their purposes. The ancient purposes are not the same purposes of modern day skulls. Modern day skulls can do healing work. They work side by side with the human beings who are drawn to working with them. They can work on all aspects of human life in altars, temples, programming, whatever the human being can think of that is in love and light. The crystal skulls are happy to help and assist. On your spiritual path, your physical path, your emotional path, your thinking path, whatever journey you're on, crystal skulls can be beneficial for that journey if you open up your mind to the concept of working with them. I do have another question. So a lot of people will not be able to talk to their skulls like I'm talking to you. Should that in any way limit how they work with them? And Czar's answer to that is absolutely not. Having a conversation with a crystal skull is not required at all. There are many powerful uses for crystal skulls that don't involve any form of verbal communication. And the fact that you may not verbally communicate with the crystal skull should not deter you in any way, shape, or form from working with crystal skulls, or as we like to say, playing with crystal skulls. They're valuable tools for those who are drawn to working with them. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Czar. It's always amazing for me to work with him. At one point, I asked him when the planet was first forming what was on it, and he sent me this putrid smell. And, I don't normally smell things, and it smelled like a million rotting eggs or sulfur, and it burned my eyes, it burned my nose, and I said, how could anything live? If the planet started out like that, how could anything live? And he said, nothing lived in the beginning. However, bacteria quickly learned to adapt. So that was very interesting to go back to the planet. This would be science-based and not religious-based if you're looking at the science of how planets are formed and ultimately all stars blow up and explode, I think. I'm not sure. But I'm pretty sure in science that nothing lasts forever. All right. I would like to thank you for joining this channel. And if you want to hear more Skull Talk with Czar, let me know in the comments. Talk to you soon. Bye.